Hi, beautiful friends. How are you doing? I just wanted to hop on and do a quick video. I have not been doing videos the past few days, mainly because this eclipse season is so energetic. I want to say, like, my dreams have been super vivid. I've actually been feeling the need to sleep more. I feel like there's work that we're all doing in our dream state, and that work, that processing is really important right now. The emphasis for me has really been on rest. But today I started to feel really called to begin transitioning out of that a little bit. The cosmic waves of energy that we're riding out lately, I feel like are really important, really potent, but also really intense. So please take time for yourself, drink a lot of water, rest, get good sleep. Keep your diet simple. That's a part I need to work on. That's next on my list to really focus on. But what I felt really called to do today is actually a little bit of an introduction video. I don't think I've ever really done one, but I do think it would be great to share a little bit of information with you about who I am and a little bit of the experiences that I've had that have led me to this place and time in my life. So yeah, a little quick introduction. My name is Natasha. In my day job, I'm a therapist and a coach. I have an independent private practice that I really enjoy doing. I see clients in person and virtually, but that's not at all why I created this channel. I actually created this channel to tap into a different side of me. Some of the things that I've talked about and intend to talk about on this channel are things that I would share with clients, but other things are a little bit more on the personal side, a little bit more on the spiritual side. And while I'm open to talking about those things with clients, I really let clients guide that process. A lot of times, and I think most therapists will tell you this, therapists can feel really constrained in terms of what we can share with clients and how much of our personal selves can be invited into the room. A lot of therapy programs intentionally train us that way because the idea is so that clients can have a little bit more of a blank slate to rest their own process on and to be a neutral holding space for that process. And that is and can be really powerful. However, it's also okay and common for therapists to share a little bit of their own personal lives in process in sessions, but it needs to be measured and intentionally focused on the benefit of the client. But with all of the caution and the training that we receive, I think that it can leave therapists feeling a little bit like they can't necessarily have an outlet for their full personhood. And as I've gotten older, I've really craved that. I've really craved places and spaces and relationships and conversations that allow for deeper exploration and sharing, that allow me to participate a little bit deeper in that process of sharing who I am and what matters to me and things like that, sharing practices that I personally really enjoy, even if they're more spiritual in nature, for example. But anyway, although my role as a therapist is a piece of the process in terms of why I ended up wanting to share in this way in online spaces, it's not the whole story. So I thought I would share a little bit more about my background. I was born in Spain on a U.S. military base. Both of my parents were in the military in the United States Air Force. I was raised in a military family and we moved a lot. All of that relocation definitely shaped me as a person. It is part of what ultimately got me interested in attachment theory and including place attachment theory. It's not easy to move a lot when you're a kid. But despite that, I joined the military myself when I was 17. I graduated high school a little bit young. And when you're under 18, your parents have to sign their permission for you to join before you're 18. So they did that, and I joined the Air Force when I was 17. I met my husband when we were both right out of basic training. I was still 17 when we met. We got married when I was 20. But we didn't have our first kid until I was 36. So we had a lot of time together, just the two of us, before we had kids. So what did we do at that time? Well, we were in school. We got our undergraduate degree together, our master's, and then my husband wrapped up grad school and I continued on for my PhD. I did a postdoc, and then we finally decided to settle down and think about having kids. So some would say we had kids late. My kids are now 14 and 16. I have two girls. We only served one term in the military, and after that we were using the training that we got in our military training program. We were both medical laboratory techs, so we did testing in medical labs, blood and body fluid testing. Kind of a cool job to have in the military. Although regardless of what job you're assigned in the military, you still got to learn how to fire an M16 and gain all the combat skills and all of that stuff, which was a unique experience for sure. I was raised Catholic. I received my first Holy Communion and was confirmed, the whole 9 yards. Dave and I were married in a Catholic church, but I would never have considered myself to be necessarily spiritual until much later in life, and I want to get into that in a moment. While I had that Catholic background, once I was on my own, I really didn't pursue that or any religion necessarily. I never really considered myself to be deeply religious, and I would say to this day, I still would not consider myself a religious person. But I am now a deeply spiritual person. Most of my spirituality really deepened when I gave myself permission to not necessarily need to find that experience in a church setting. My spiritual life really lit on fire experientially. And by that I mean a series of very personal spiritual encounters that I have had on my own. I've always been very drawn to mystical studies, to mystical things, to esoteric knowledge. I'll go so far as to say that that's what initially tugged at my heart the most when I was younger and kept my heart very open for experiences that could be described as mystical or transcendent. But putting all of that aside, what really got me deep into my faith was profound loss. First, the loss of my mom unexpectedly when my kids were ages 3 and 5. She passed away in a car fire and explosion on the side of a freeway. And then, of course, the passing of my husband in 2021, so a little over 4 years ago. Both of those losses were unexpected and traumatic and shocking. And if you're familiar with attachment theory, both of those losses were with my attachment figures. So you can imagine how destabilizing that would feel from an attachment standpoint alone, let alone personally and emotionally, even physically. After my mom's passing, I definitely started to turn more inward. That process led me to yoga and meditation, mainly as tools to really figure out how to sit with the intensity of what I was feeling in my body. It led me to want to be trained as a yoga instructor and eventually to receive training in breath work and somatic attachment therapy. So all in all, I've done 3 different yoga teacher trainings, each one very different and unique. And all of these educational experiences, including my education as a therapist combined, has led me to become really passionate about nervous system regulation, connection and relationship health internally in terms of our relationship with ourselves and how that influences our relationships outside of us, and learning how to foster and create more safety internally so that we can feel more secure and grounded, foster more of a learned, secure attachment style over time, which then enables us to go out and do all kinds of amazing things, including the creation of stronger, healthier relationships with other people. But also, I believe that it's from that really grounded and safe place that we're able to serve in our calling in ways that we came here to, which might really stretch us outside of our comfort zone. So all of these practices help us to build a strong, solid foundation for all of the beautiful things that we hope for, that we would like to journey toward throughout the course of our lives. But it was the passing of my husband that really ended up launching me deep into my personal faith. And to some degree, that could be expected, right? A lot of people will say it's through the most difficult experiences in people's lives that they feel compelled to ask for help in a spiritual way, to say, God, please help me. And while, again, I'm not religious and am not affiliated with any church of any sort, I know that in church settings, those are the stories that are used as testimony. So I will say that that is a big part that led me to deepen my spiritual faith journey. It's been experiences connected with his loss since then that have deepened that journey. This video would get way too long if I were to go into all the details of that now, but what I will say is that his loss led me to pull back the veil. And once I pulled back the veil and started peeking at what's on the other side, I discovered things that changed me forever. So part of me creating this channel is an outgrowth of the fact that I've had these really intense experiences that are connected with his passing, but that ultimately became a very personal journey for me individually. Over time, I will share more, but for now, I'll just summarize where it's landed me today. Where it's landed me today, again, like I said, is in a deeply spiritual place that has nothing to do with religion. It's landed me in a place where I feel deeply connected with Jesus in Christ consciousness and also with Mary Magdalene. In my personal spiritual journey, it was Mary Magdalene that led me to Jesus. And the reason why I mention that is because the spiritual frequency that I really feel like I tap into the most is one that very much emphasizes a balance between masculine and feminine spiritual energies. I really feel like it's important to reclaim the other half of the spiritual frequency that is embodied by God. And I would go so far as to say that the imbalance that has existed in the masculine being emphasized more so in religious and societal circles when it comes to spiritual themes is part of what's created so much chaos in the present day. In my mind, part of the solution is bringing more of the feminine aspects of spirituality back into the conversation. And when you open up that door, when you invite in more of the feminine aspects of God to the table, what comes along with it hand in hand is more of an emphasis on the experiential. Less of the activity that's been going on up here, less of the rational, and more of the embodied, heart-centered, intuitive, feminine divinity that lives inside of all of us. But also importantly, I want to emphasize widening the discussion to include both masculine and feminine aspects of God, of spirituality to the table in the conversation, and taking these conversations outside of the church setting invites way more people to the table for discussion. Thus far, the path to the table has felt very narrow to me and to, I think, a lot of people. And instead of even considering walking down that path, a lot of people say, no thanks. I don't identify with what I see on the other side of that tunnel. There's not very much that represents me. There's not very much that represents the way that I live, the way that I love, the way that I operate. And so to some degree, I think that part of why I created this channel is because I want to throw the door to that tunnel wide open. I want to unlock the door and make it less complicated to get inside. In fact, I keep these keys on my desk as a symbol to remind myself that pathways that once felt locked needn't be. That narratives that have existed and that have been perpetuated for a very long time have limited the contribution of holy feminine aspects of God has been extremely limiting, and I would say damaging. I know that this message isn't for everybody, and that's okay. Part of the reason I wanted to create this video now when my channel is small is because I want people who follow to know where I stand so that I don't feel like I have to censor myself. So I can step up with a really strong and full voice and share with clarity my truth, my vision, not because I think it's going to appeal to everybody, but because I think the people that it will appeal to are those that have not typically felt like they had a key to gain access to something that I think is so vital and fundamental to a healing and rich and thriving and beautiful experience that's open to all of us as human beings. That experience being one that has to do with our magical, mystical, transformative, enlightening, healing experiences with God, with Source, however you want to define that energy. Anyone is welcome here. As long as you're kind and respectful and lead from the heart, this can be a place where we can explore a much more broad understanding of spiritual life. I operate in my head a lot. I'm very cognitively focused, but I'm also just as deeply rooted in my heart space. And a significant amount of the time, my attention is plugged into the other side of the veil, simply because it's as real as everything that we experience here. In fact, everything that materializes here in our physical lives have already occurred in the spiritual realms. And so where I found myself landing at this stage of my life is straddling both worlds with the goal to serve as a bridge. And I kind of don't even want to say the goal, but the assignment of serving as a bridge. This is not something that I sought out. This is something that grabbed me by the hand and led me forward and left me a little bit confused and in shock about what it is that I'm saying most of the time in these videos. But what I feel like I've been asked to do, and what I feel like so many of you have been asked to do, is to surrender, to allow yourself to be guided, to be led, to feel that spiritual energy tugging at your heart and trying to wrap itself around your hand and lead you down a path toward your deepest knowing, toward your deepest self, which is a journey that lasts a lifetime. I just think it's more fun if we have some company while we do it. So what I thought I would do is just pull one card while we wrap this up just to see what comes out and if we have a message waiting here to close us out before I end this video. So let's just get one card to close things out. Oh, something already jumped out right away. Truth. We have truth. And what's so beautiful is that she's there sort of removing her mask, and that's what this video is a little bit about for me. It's a little bit of an unmasking, sharing a little bit more about who I am and what motivated the creation of this channel to begin with, the root structure that underlies all of it. I wonder if you would be willing to take off your mask for me and share a little bit in the comments about who you are. It would mean so much to me. I'm honored to be walking this journey with you. I appreciate you. Take the very best care, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.